So Rich, welcome to Confounded TV, the founder of the Business Score and a Y Combinator graduate. Welcome.
Okay, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm really looking forward to it.
Done. This is actually episode 10, so congratulations. And
double digits.
Double
That's
digits.
A milestone in itself.
Episode 10, 100 subscribers. I mean, I'm virtually there. So I think that the key things of interest are, let's start with like what the business is and like the idea you had before Y Combinator, and then everyone would like to hear about Y Combinator, right? So can you just lay out what the business is, or what you thought it was before you went to Y Combinator? It's pretty more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the start of life is that your what you're trying to build is always evolving. So I mean, what I can do is take a step back and talk about maybe the vision or the end goal.
Yeah.
So the reason why I started Business Score is because I think that if you are a business owner and you're making people happy, they're buying your product. If you want to access the funding you need to scale your business and to grow it, first I think the funding should be fair, or access to it should be fair. I think it should be really fast, and I think it should be simple.
Mm-hmm.
And where the world's headed, so much more information being available, so much more granular data, there's no reason why the information you generate through your business can't be used to help you access funding in a much more streamlined way.
Yeah, and that's absolutely key, isn't it? I think applying for funding based on what happened 6 months ago, a year ago, is a bit last century. And of course, if you're a high scaling e-commerce company and you're needing funding, last year you may not even have existed, which is
exactly. And that's what we're finding now. So we focus exclusively on internet-based businesses, so e-commerce as a more specific category. And I mean, what it means is that every day we're meeting businesses that were set up, some of them 6 months ago, and are now going into like hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of sale every single month. Others have been around for a bit longer, but I think the consistent thing that we're seeing, particularly in this kind of COVID kind of lockdown world, is that people's or consumers' habits are now shifting online.
Yeah.
And so online, definitely, I think the time has come now. But it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, and your timing's pretty cool, right? So here's a guy coming saying, I'm going to give fair, transparent access to funding based on recent events and actual financial history of like what's actually happening month on month recently. And then all of a sudden, this tragedy comes along, which actually puts people online. Of course, so many businesses are just skyrocketing. And also are you seeing like smaller businesses going from quite small revenues and growing fast? Because obviously we all know that like all the big guys are selling more, but is that happening across like the smaller businesses as well?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of innovation. I mean, there's a couple of things. You've got some businesses that are new, kind of how you're describing, that are doing well from low starting points. But you've also got a lot of businesses that were previously offline or selling the goods, in stores, who've now realized they need to also go online. And so it's quite interesting seeing people who might have not been as digitally savvy adapting to this new reality.
Yeah.
And obviously, what's great for us is that because they are online, it means that we can support them in helping them to access funding, because there's just much more transparency around the data and how they're actually performing once they do come online.
And I guess there can't be many competitors.
So at the moment, I think there's always providers that you can go and get funding from. As far as at the moment, there aren't any brokers that focus like we do, particularly on online businesses. But I'm sure that's going to change. I think it's only probably a matter of time until there's more companies focused on certain online businesses. And we're happy. I mean, I'm happy to see that, because I think if there's more organizations helping businesses get funded, we're going to have more businesses that are doing great and able to expand.
And also find funding like based on recent events, rather than last year's filed accounts at Companies House 2 years later. I mean, you file, if your end of year is December 2020, then you're going to file them anytime up to September next year. So I mean, there's while there is no reason, of course, while you haven't done your accounts and filed them, nobody seems to do it. So unless they say file within a month, because I reckon all the filing from within a month is all no big companies just can't do it, right? They've got too many moving parts to get to that point. So then the little companies all kind of go, well, I'm not doing it, because then my next door neighbor will see my dividends. So it's all a bit of...
Yeah, and not just that, but also, for a lot of companies, it's not obvious that, that their annual accounts really reflect their performance on a month-to-month basis. And, so many businesses are seasonal. Exactly, and many businesses are seasonal. There's so many discrepancies that I think it is necessary for there to be a newer, more reactive way to be able to assess the business's performance.
So how does it work? I've set up Al's, fancy hats.
Yeah.
And I've gone from I was turning over $1,000 a month of my home hobby selling hats. For some reason, my hats are taking off and I'm doing 20, 30, 40 grand a month. None of this was reflected in any set of actual statutory accounts. It is obviously in Xero or Sage or whatever I'm using. How do you actually technically look into that data to then go out to lenders and say, we've found somebody we think you should lend to?
Yes, the way it works is we have the business school platform. So the e-commerce business we support connect to the business school platform, and what we do in the background is we continually see how they're performing over time.
What live
and
through their
yeah, exactly. So
platform.
Live through their Xero, or live through their accounting, or live through their
Brilliant.
Shopify,
Yeah,
or other online stores that they might be using,
yeah,
Amazon, etc. And what we're able to do in real time is keep those owners notified of new things that they've become eligible for. And we have partnerships now with the leading lenders in the country.
yeah.
So that means that we have those direct relationships.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's totally straightforward, because that there often are certain requirements that particular lenders want. Mm-hmm. And so what we do is we provide value-added support to the businesses and make sure that they also understand what the nuances are and the needs of each lenders.
So, guessing here, an example is Al's Hats is doing really well, 30 grand a month, but you've connected to my Shopify front end, back end, so you can see that. But I guess the lender goes, well, that's great, but I need to know more about the actual the financials of the business, because for all they know, there's an outstanding director's loan of 50 grand.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
depending on the needs. So we also have lenders that are very comfortable with lending directly based on the sales of Al's Hats. Yeah. So we've got revenue. They're called revenue-based lenders that particularly just look at your Shopify or your Amazon data.
Yeah.
And we also have more traditional lenders. So for example, maybe Al's Hats are now going to be stocked in Tesco's. We're able to get you trade finance that would mean that you can cover the cash flow challenges with supplying Tesco with your hats, because they typically might only pay you after 6 months or so.
Yeah.
For the hats.
That's a whole different podcast.
Yeah. Exactly. So we have relationships with now. We have full suite of products for e-commerce businesses to handle all these different types of situations.
That is fantastic, because for so many fast-growing e-commerce businesses, which this last 6 months must have been a surreal experience, I'm guessing. How do you even start organizing that? It must be quite hard, because I can imagine a few traditional companies which this is starting to work really well, and then they've gone to their bank, their high street bank, because I want to borrow some money, and they said, well, no, because look at last year. And, and there's no comparison, and there's no history for anything like this either, I guess.
Exactly that, and I think that's where we've seen opportunity to come in and try and add value, try and bridge that gap.
So you've obviously
far, so good.
Yeah, I know, Chris. You've got we've got to go here, right? Because I'm fascinated, even if I don't know how many other people are. Everyone I know has read about Y Combinator. So you have your idea, you pitch for Y Combinator, and then you get in, right? So I presume at this point you had to up sticks and move to the States for 3 months.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Y Combinator program is in person. It's in Silicon Valley, and it's literally probably most intense 10 weeks of your life.
Intense, just learning, work, grafting.
Work, everything. So you're just really trying to improve your product, trying to understand your users, trying to get more users, trying to, and also prepare for the infamous demo day. So the way it works is you have 10 weeks of building your product, trying to get more users, trying to understand the nuances, and then in the 10th week you've got demo day, which is where you then pitch your vision to the world.
And you're pitching to some serious people in that point, right? I don't know all the names, but when I read, I think I read somebody's book on doing it, actually. Or no, there's a great book. I'll stick it in the show notes. There is a great book about the history of Y Combinator. But you're pitching to some of Silicon Valley's finest, right?
Yeah, it's amazing, and I think that Y Combinator have done a great job of bringing together the whole ecosystem. So you have all the big investors from Silicon Valley, but you also have investors from Europe now come over. You have investors from Asia. So it really is a global stage. And so you're pitching to about 2,000 investors live in the room, in the auditorium, and then you've got thousands more that are watching online. But obviously, the model now has moved to it being online viewership because of COVID. But when I did it, it was all in person.
But I guess that makes it easier for them, right? Because I mean, one of the most amazing things, and I was talking to Charlie Songhurst about this, is the sort of transformational feel of this. I mean, a lot of people, like my LinkedIn's people going, whenever he's back in the office, that'll be fantastic. And I think, well, I don't know if they're going to go back, because actually, if I want to raise some money, I'd hate to think how much money I spent at Carson. Get up and down to London for a meeting to meet an investor, for a 20-minute meeting, trying to schedule 3, but then they're all so busy and stuff gets cancelled and moved all the time. And now, of course, you can actually just say, I'm here at this time, that time, and this time, and I'll do my deck, and any questions, you can literally run a webinar to do it. So you can actually now reach, and also you can probably create a bit more FOMO. So effectively what they're doing is you have 2,000 people in the auditorium who now just join remotely, but also because it becomes more accepted, more people will join. So it's quite an interesting one. How many of that cohort weren't from the States? Because obviously you're going from Britain. How many people were going?
So I think it's typically about, I say probably like non-US, I think are probably like about half.
Wow, okay.
Non-US now, yeah. So that's rest of the world.
So it's really awesome. And of course, so how are they going to, do you know how they're going to do so for somebody who wants to apply and go next year, like how are they going to do it now?
Yeah, so for going forward, it's fully remote. It's the way it's working. So people join the cohorts, but it's all remote.
See, that's transformational, right?
Yeah.
Now, if I'm in the other part of the world and I can't afford to fly to the States, to live in the States for 10 weeks, I can just do it from home, right? And that means they can identify developing countries. They can develop, people who'd never even have thought about it can make, if you've got small children, very few people really want to give everything up and spend 10 weeks in the States in that situation, mostly because they won't be allowed. So that's really sort of, kind of what is leveling, right? It means anyone can apply. And then it's down to the idea, the people, the grit and the determination to make an idea work, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think definitely it's a game changer, and I think it's interesting, but I think it's also part of like YC's long-term strategy in a way is they're really keen on making a lot of the content more readily available, because their take on it is that if you've got more entrepreneurs, there'll be more problems in the world that will be solved. So,
yeah, and actually maybe different problems apart from the not quite the Silicon Valley. Oh, my taxi's late. I'd rather like because the story behind Uber, right? So that he made a few quid on a previous venture. I think it was in the low millions. Don't sue me, please, Travis. I think it was in the low millions. And basically, San Francisco taxi services were just woeful, if not non-existent. So he bought a Prius and paid a bloke to drive him around, as you do, right? And then, of course, all his mates wanted to use this driver and everything. So, of course, it just spiraled into actually, everybody wants this. And it was, and I love the idea because despite all the bad press about it and stuff, it was an idea to fix a problem for somebody for themselves, which then actually has a huge audience out there, which is one of the key things with all startups. Because if you've got people who are desperate for funding, can't get it through traditional channels, but by plugging in Shopify and Xero, you can automate almost that whole process. And are you just UK focused now, or are you looking like wider than that?
Yeah, so at the moment we're UK focused. I think what's amazing is that we do have entrepreneurs. We've had quite a few entrepreneurs from the US reach out to us, and we've had some from continental Europe also reach out to us. But for the immediate future, we're UK focused.
Yeah, and all right, because I guess you're a licensed credit broker.
Exactly. Yes, so we are a broker.
Yeah, so you'll have obviously FSA regulations here, and then I guess you're going to have similar. Certainly in Europe, you're going to have a similar level of restriction in each country. So you're going to have lots of boxes to tick and paperwork to fill out for each European country. Is that right?
Potentially in other European countries, but I mean in the UK, one of the great things is that for B2B, brokers for B2B isn't actually regulated. So it's the lenders that are regulated.
Okay.
So the constraints aren't as stringent here in the UK. It's a lot more open, ultimately. But yeah, so I think as long as we're not lending, then it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I think we definitely are like in the fortunate position in terms of being a broker, because it means that we don't necessarily there's much less red tape that we have to contend with at the moment.
Yeah. So tell me about your pitch day.
Yeah, I mean it was pretty epic. Go up onto the stage, and it's interesting because the whole room's silent, right? So everyone's waiting for you to kind of open your mouth, it's really well orchestrated as well. I must say that YC have really got the whole process down to a T. Obviously after like from a decade of doing them, and you get onto the stage, you then you then have your 2 minutes, so it's literally a 2-minute pitch. And
10 weeks for 2 minutes.
2-minute pitch. And so obviously you don't necessarily get a lot of time to actually explain exactly what you're doing and exactly what your vision is. But you do get an idea to kind of paint the broader picture of what it is. There's almost like a bit of a hook to then have a further conversation with investors. And done really well off the back of it. We've got like a lot of interest from a lot of like Bay Area like investors. We've got a lot of interest from European investors. And so I think we're in quite a fortunate position where we have a lot of flexibility who would be like the best partner for us.
So you had funding choice.
Well, we have partner choice, so I mean, like, so it's definitely we got a good choice around and figure out like who we felt would be like the best fit for us. And yeah, I think made like a good call so far, and so yeah, we're very fortunate, and I think it's one of those experiences which I think you take with you for a long time, just kind of being in that environment, the hecticness, the busyness.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I definitely think this part of it, it would be good to try and like replicate here in terms of the energy and in terms of the.
Yeah, I think people are trying, aren't they? You got Brent running Founder First, where you can sort of, I've got an idea, you can go there and find a co-founder, and this kind of trying to line you for the, he gets, or he or they or the fund put money in, I guess, for those successful ones, and you try and match people together. Whether you can ever get the British Reserve to kind of be quite so gung-ho, and because I can imagine if you've got half of that cohort is US based, there's gonna be a lot of can do, which is a bit different to the kind of British. Well, maybe if on Tuesday, because I think that I think it's an interesting one. Do you think they can have that level of energy and enthusiasm? And let's say even outside London, because that's another big issue, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, definitely, it's one of the point of London. I think there's hubs. If you look at Manchester, there's a lot of like really great business out there. I think potentially, I think what we need more of in the UK ecosystem and also London. I think we just need to see like more winners, more people who've gone and built big companies, then coming back and investing and supporting other companies. And I think it's starting to happen. I think slowly but surely it's actually starting to happen. And I think what happens then is those entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, also bring their experiences. They also bring their networks.
Yeah,
and they're a lot more open as well. So I think we're getting there, but it's venture as a kind of industry is still relatively young in the UK.
Yeah, and did you get asked the famous question of well, indrawn breath? The problem with these British companies, as soon as there's a decent amount of money on the table, the founder is off. Because they want you to conquer the world, right? The business score's got to fund every e-commerce business, or 80% of them, and it's got to dominate the whole space. If I think of funding and I'm an e-commerce, I'm gonna go to the business score, and you as the CEO and the founder have got to make sure you win, growth at all costs. Did you have any of that? Did you get any of that reticence? Did you feel that at all when you were there?
I think there's definitely like an energy in terms of like you can do it. And I think that was like, and I mean, like one story. I was in a cafe at like an event organized by, I think it was by our law firm that we used. We used like a startup law firm, and I was in the event, and there was another founder there, and he was like, "Oh, cool, you guys, you're doing YC," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing YC." Because how's it going? What you guys up to? And I was like, I found out I was in fintech, I mentioned business school, etc. And then he was like, "Yeah, feel free to like reach out if you need any help or need introductions or if you want try the product." And I took his card, and when I actually went back later to go check out, this guy he founded a unicorn. He founded a unicorn, and he's just like, "Yeah, let me know if you want to chat."
Holy shit!
Yeah, and he's like, "Let me know if I can make introductions for you." And I think that is where the US is like incredible. Everyone is open to at least having the first conversation. Yeah. And I think because they've seen 16 literally they've seen like teenagers literally go out and make stuff for themselves, people in their early 20s. I think there's a real belief that you can do things no matter who you are. So give everyone a chance. Whereas I think in the UK, I think there's definitely much more, unfortunately, of an assumption that you need to have gone to Oxford, you need to have like Goldman Sachs or McKinsey, or
Yeah,
you've got
yeah.
to have
Oh,
in order to
definitely.
even get a seat at the table.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely problematic. But I think it is. I think it's evolving. I think it is. It is changing. But
Yeah, I call them the white shirt brigade. They all wear the same tie. The shirts are designed not for a tie, and they all all these guys in that space all wear the same Levi's, the same shirt, and the same brogues. And you're kind of like, that's a uniform if ever there was one. At the same time as proclaiming we don't do uniforms, we're like cool and hip, and you're like, really?
yeah,
And they have a way of being. I remember meeting a couple of guys. I won't say who and what they were doing. And I met them in the cafe somewhere in VC land, Mayfair, Chelsea, whatever. And they were doing it, so they were going to pitch, and I just sat next to them at the cafe, we were chatting away, and I was going to pitch. And their whole thing was like so analytical, and their whole thing was pretty much we went to this place, and then we went to these MAs, MBAs, sorry. So like we're awesome at business, so we're going to start a startup and raise some money. It wasn't because they wanted to solve a problem or they had a great idea. It was like we're going to get money because we fit the mold of the guys who should get the money. 6 months later, it was closed.
yeah. And this is it, right? This is
Yeah.
it. It's not. You can't be typecast as have
Mm.
those prejudices to assume who can do it and who can't. I think things are changing. I think things are improving. So I
Yeah,
think
definitely.
there's definitely hope. Yeah.
So what's next then?
Yeah. So next is continue to grow our team. We currently now have have hundreds of e-commerce businesses that we're engaged with and that we're
Brilliant.
supporting. And so for us, it's really about like building that up and like building more relationships. And yeah, just continue to expand what we're doing.
It's worth saying, like, how are you? There must. I think I once received an email list of old people who had Shopify stores, which is obviously I've deleted. And it had like 1 million stores on it or something, and I guessed that was pre-COVID. So I mean, I presume a lot of people are starting these things up and seeing some traction, and also people are like building whole Instagram stuff, like the whole. I actually do have. Oh, it's not here. I got a bike light that fits underneath the saddle, and like when you brake, it lights up, right? And that's the kind of thing that people are inventing one thing and only working on Instagram. But I guess you could still, as long as they've got a shop front, which is Shopify, you can still. I mean, what's this? Okay, I'll start that again. What size of businesses are you? Is your kind of holy grail? I mean, what's the turnover up and down per month?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, like my the way I see it is, we see ourselves as a supporter of, the one band, one woman, and one guy, e-commerce store that's just grinding away trying to grow, and we feel like we can really support them on their journey into becoming the next big thing. So for us, that's what we love. That's what gets me really excited when we get new business coming.
We're not really talking about Alice's hats at 1,000.
I mean, it could be.
Really?
It could be Alice's hatch, yeah. I mean,
Hey, Rich,
it
I've
doesn't
got this
mean you get
business.
funded straight away, because typically speaking, you do need to probably have about maybe around 5 to 10K a month of sales to be able to get like more growth funding. But we love meeting early businesses that are, might not be quite ready yet, but we can support them and make sure if they do need funding for whatever purpose, then we can make sure they can access it.
So how are you finding them? I mean, like, what's your kind of go-to market?
Yeah, so it's been a mixture. So we do like quite a lot of content, so that's worked really well for us. Businesses engage with our content, so I guess like content marketing. We also like do like things like more traditional, more modern but traditional kind of Facebook ads. That's been pretty effective. But what we've found has been probably most powerful is literally just been word of mouth. So businesses that have kind of gone through business schools process, telling other businesses that we can help them.
Wow, that's good, man.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's what we're trying to continue to grow is the word of mouth.
Yeah, but that's super powerful. If that service is that good that I'll then go and say, hey, my hat business is taking off, and I check my Ferrari out on YouTube, and I see the guy who sells cushion covers, okay, and how do you do it? Well, I went to the business school, right? That's if you're getting people doing that, that's I mean. Do you actually break these down in your metrics? I mean, like I said, we wouldn't talk about metrics too much because people switch off at that point. Hey, everyone, we're not going to talk about metrics for very long. Do you actually measure all the different sources of, like, I presume you measure like lead, inquiry lead, not quite ready yet, and fulfilled? And are you actually being able to see, actually, look, the majority of our business is coming from word of mouth? Can you actually see that?
We can to the portion that's coming from word of mouth. Yeah, we can.
And are you brave enough to say how much that is?
Good. Still under wraps. Still under wraps. I mean, the goal is to get, if we could get to 100% of all our business word of mouth, then that would be something. Will we ever get there? Who knows? But
and how do you compare to like Iwaka? So for people who aren't familiar, Iwaka, I believe, are primarily eBay store funding.
yes, so Iwaka are one of the businesses we actually have on our panel. So they're a lender, and
Okay,
how we're
that's James
different.
Deere, and I think I met James back in the day. So
Yeah.
so they're actually a lender on your panel. So actually, if I can
Yeah,
my
so they're
store,
amazing. They're an amazing lender that we do connect some other e-commerce businesses to. So I'd say the difference between us and probably them or the lenders is that we are independent in the sense that we're on the side of the e-commerce business to always give them the best rate
yeah,
as quickly as possible. Whereas obviously each of the lenders they provide their individual products. So we're not tied to any particular provider or any particular lender. Our main goal and objective is to make sure that each e-commerce business can get access to the best.
And can you make instant decisions?
So we can, in some regards, make instant decisions, but we're always trying to make it. We're always trying, but definitely not all the time. And sometimes, like I mentioned, there's like further details we do need, so it's not instant yet. But I mean, our end goal and like where we see more going over the next several years is instant decisions.
Yeah,
and funding available within a click. So one click funding is what I think is what we're looking to bring into the world.
Yeah, I can see you doing really well there. I mean, you can see that people are coming on Shopify platform Zero over here. Things start to grow. I mean, there's obviously a bunch of stuff you could do that's integrated with these in the end. I mean, I presume you could even have a Shopify plugin where I plug it in. It just tells me if funding's available. A bit like the way that Tide and Monzo will tell you there's funding available. So you've got this. The goal is pretty fantastic there. So is this the thing that gets rich out of bed? Is that long-term vision? Is person comes along, has store, she clicks 2 buttons, and you basically go lenders, automated decision, profile it right down, and she can click yes and accept the finance.
That for us would be that'd be golden. I think what gets me out of bed today is just when we speak to businesses or business owners who are just working really hard, just really grinding, and it's always so inspiring just hearing those stories. And I think we always glamorize when you get an exit, you become the next Gymshark, or just meeting entrepreneurs when they're much earlier in the journey, they're not really sure. And I think where we can provide them with a little bit of guidance and it gives them a bit of a confidence boost, that's probably the most fulfilling part for me at the moment.
Yeah, because we both know really what actually happens out there, which is people grind away, and for whatever reason, serendipity, the breaks don't happen, and they're working, and then you get the young guy from Gymshark, I'm a billionaire now. Here's how I did it. And also all the entrepreneurs. There's a great guy, and if you look up YouTube, Mike Willett, I think his name is. And he has a whole channel devoted to all these guys who say, this is how I got rich. You can get rich too. Wake up in the morning, think like me. 6 o'clock, go running, do this. You'll be rich like, and all those YouTube, vlogger, Instagram, be a rich. And it's all just guff, right? It's such hard work.
Yeah, it's not it really is a lot of hard work. And things never go to plan. You're always trying to figure things out. And I think just seeing that on a day-to-day basis is really humbling. And it gives us a good reason to exist.
Well, you're doing the same thing, aren't you? You've had a bit of a boost from YCOM, and you've got a great table of investors. But at the same time, I bet you're grinding it out.
Yeah, we are working really hard.
So, have you got what I call the Al life-work balance, where there isn't one, and it's just life, in which part of it is all just work and life all thrown in? Because this life-work balance thing is hilarious, and because I think, all right. You answer the question first, and then we'll have a discussion on what I think transformationally what's happening.
So in terms of
your life-work balance, have you got life and work? Do you switch off? Do you switch on? Or do you just go, I think about this all the time pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think about it pretty much all the time, But I now just try to fit in more. What I've realized is you've got to make sure that in your calendar, in your diary, you have time for I think we're going to go out at this time, have a nice dinner. Even if my company's still on my mind, we're still going to go out and have dinner. And I'm going to meet up with that old friend and go for a drink. And then I'm going to go back home and I'm still going to be thinking about it. But I
Yeah.
think that's what you can try and go all in on your business. But at the end of the day,
I think you are all in. I think that's the big myth, right? I think you are all in. I love the idea. I'll ask Mrs. Campbell if I can have half an hour of her time in the diary. Luckily, I'm not in a business right now, so that's handy. But yeah, I mean, I get you. I mean, I think I bored my wife shitless with Carstep. Go for dinner, chat about some other stuff, and it just seems to, especially going through funding rounds and stuff, you just can't push it further back because it's all consuming. And I've got this theory. So I want your opinion on this. You talked to Charlie Songhurst, and we talked about earlier, and I talked to him about transformational thoughts, right? So, he's got a global view. He's got 500 founders. He flies around the world. He did fly around the world. He knows, he sees way more than any one of us might see in our little bubbles, right? And we talked about this transformation thing, and you see a lot on LinkedIn, especially just now, people saying work-life balance is broken because people are at home. Now I'm not talking here about the kids who have a house share and they basically got a desk at the end of their bed, right? And they're all a bit stuck because they've got a shared kitchen. So we're talking about people who have got a house and a flat and they've got some space. And I don't see many of them complaining about work-life balance because I actually think it's sort of been fixed. Because actually, if I need to go and walk the dog, I can go and walk the dog because I can catch up later. And as long as my boss isn't some kind of presenteeism junkie where, if you've got to be on your screen 9 to 5, I'm going to do screenshots and make sure you're there by asking you a question every 20 minutes. People actually should, once they understand that merging of work life into you have a life and stop trying to separate it and be smoother with the whole thing rather than kind of off and on. I think it's a good thing, right? LinkedIn says not.
Yeah, I think it depends on your work, right? And I think obviously we're being like quote unquote knowledge worker. We can access a laptop.
I don't think anyone's ever said I was a knowledge worker. Thanks for that.
I think that isn't that the term is like knowledge
is
worker.
it?
People who can work on their laptop. I think that's one thing. Yeah, I think it just really depends. I think you've got to look at the lens of the type of work someone's doing.
Yeah,
I think I think we definitely have a lot of privilege, right? If you are the kind of person that can set your laptop and make a living. It's very different if you're someone who needs to go out and maybe just maybe a bit more hands-on. Or even if you're a high school engineer, for example, you just need to go out and go to sites with an electrician again. Or even if you're a nurse working in a hospital. So I think
But for those knowledge workers, right?
Yeah.
They're not commuting. They're not spending £3 at Starbucks or Pret.
Yeah.
They don't have to sit in a train full of people and stick their nose in somebody's armpit on the tube. Or in other cities, it tends to be more driving. You're not stuck in the traffic. I can't see how. There's a bit of movement to okay, well, maybe this house doesn't quite work because I've got a desk in the spare bedroom kind of thing, and I'd rather have a little office. But that will change over time, assuming this doesn't get fixed with a vaccine next week. And I think that has to be a good thing for people's families, for the ability to go, oh, it's sunny, I'm going to go outside for half an hour, rather than be stuck in an office with some kind of weird presenteeism junkie, as I call them, who just wants you there. Because, you're right, it's knowledge workers, you've got to be able to work on a laptop. But if you're a software developer and you preferred working at night, which a lot of them do because it's quieter and it seems to fit some people's biorhythms better, getting up at 7 to get to an office for 8:30 doesn't make any sense.
No, it's true. I do buy it, and I think for those of us that can, I think it has been a big step forward in terms of flexibility.
Yeah, and becoming a norm.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, I don't have children yet, but I imagine if I did have a family, the idea that I could work my business and get to maybe have breakfast with them, or even get to then get back to my computer or I think that'd be amazing. I think it would be a bit of a game changer because I think the alternative is you are going to be in an office just from first thing until midnight, and then it's going to be
yeah, absolutely. I mean, apart from mine get back shortly, and then it's like Daddy in the middle of a recording. But I felt certainly like I got to know. I mean, it helps being unemployed, but I certainly got to see more of them. I actually realised how much I have missed. Because even the year previous to COVID, I was in the 3 months previous, I was never here. I was away in Europe 4 days a week. And that shocked me just in that short period, how much from Christmas to then, and then how much I'd missed, right? So it must be good. Less travel, less CO2. There must be a whole bunch of good things. I know it's terrible, right? But I'm trying to find some upside in the
I think
there
probably is actually a lot of upside in it. And I think this idea of work life, you're right, you're not spending 2 hours on the the tube, you know,
Mm.
or on a train each day.
Yeah, and
Really
people
easy.
were. I mean, people were generally spending like, like a day a week equivalent on
Yeah,
travel. Which is terrifying when you think about it. If you actually think
anything
about that,
like
it doesn't make
yeah.
any sense whatsoever. So, is your team? I mean, do you even have an office?
So this is a good question. So we did have an office, but at least came to an end. So we haven't renewed it, and so we're currently figuring out like how we're going to move things forward in terms of setup. So yes,
Which,
it's definitely something we're looking at. Will we go into an office 5 days a week? Unlikely.
hmm
But I think, especially for an early stage startup, there definitely is an element of you wanting to be having like FaceTime or like time where you're
yeah,
trying to collaborate on whiteboard time. And I think we may look at maybe like 1 day a week somewhere if we can get an office, maybe like on Fridays where we can all come together, we can like talk, we can just have that in person
yeah.
kind of engagement. And I think that's why I reckon is especially when you're doing creative work or work that requires like a lot of like collaboration, being in person and like those human cues can do a lot to make it more effective.
And also the boss, right? You have to look them in the eye because you still have deliverables, right? you still have shit that needs to get done.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
absolutely.
you still have to. I mean, it must be quite hard. I mean, I've got no idea, but it must be quite hard because if you set some deadlines, people still need to be held accountable to those deadlines,
Yeah,
and yet you kind of got to do it on a kind of Zoom call for half an hour every morning. You stand up, whatever you do, and that's
yeah,
that. I can imagine there's quite a difficulty in because all carrot and stick, right? So you're trying to do as much carrot as possible, but you do need to get stuff because you'll be accountable to those fantastic investors.
mm.
So are you a carrot guy or a stick guy, or is there what? How would you describe the kind of management style?
My management style thing is really try and find the best people you can and to
Hmm
give them loads of autonomy.
Brilliant.
Yeah, try and find as good people as you can. So much more of a carrot. Um, I think there definitely is probably a need for a state. You need like obviously people have like different things motivate different people, right? In terms of getting
Yeah.
to do their peak work. So
But you've got a
um,
collaborative stick, really, because you're all agreeing to do something. And I mean, how often do you report to your investors?
yeah, so I normally talk to investors at least like once a month.
That's okay. So it's once a month. That's all
Yeah,
right.
yeah, at least a monthly cadence. It maybe more if I want to like kind of month over something. So yeah.
And do they hold you? Like, are you producing like a presume investor report every month with traction and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, different startups do different things. These like what we've learned, like one of the things we put a lot of our is just trying to keep investors updated every month or so, so they can like have a bit of a cadence of what's going on. And also ask them for help, right? Because many of the investors will have loads of investments, so if you do kind of flag to them where you need a hand, they can always like jump in and offer some advice, offer some support.
And have you used? I mean, have you used that? I mean, have these guys got multiple companies where you've actually managed to reach out and they actually have another company which can help yours?
Oh, definitely. I mean, especially the way I see that work, because it's pretty much like we're like, oh, we use Stripe. Oh, let's ask Stripe if we can get some kind of discount. I mean, a lot of those things already like set up a while ago, particularly YC. But yeah, I mean, all investors have like they offer like different things. Like one of them, literally earlier today, one of our investors brings in like experts in his network to do like masterclass sessions with us on different things,
Wow.
really about prioritization for your business. A couple of weeks ago, we had like a world-renowned author. He came in and he kind of spoke his book on it was really on personal development, how to become better leaders. We had a session on that. So I mean, and not just that, but also I guess like startup network groups and part of it as well. Also like provide resources and advice. So I mean, it's definitely a lot of different places you can tap into investors and people who maybe invested in you, but not necessarily financially, but invested in your progress that you can
So
reach
you've got
out
a
to.
so you've got a good position, haven't you? Because actually, you end up being the guy for business funding, right? So if you've got one of these businesses that qualifies for your type of funding, right? That whole investor network is going to be magic for you. These e-commerce startups come in, because if I'm seeing past you're just in the UK here, then obviously it's going to be like Rich is the go-to guy, right? His platform will automate this for
Yeah,
you.
that's what we're working towards. That is what we're working towards. So,
That's because there is a word for this. I can't remember this kind of magical spinning wheel of velocity type thing, but that's actually going to be a fantastic help to you. That is fantastic, Rich. That has been a super quick fire journey through the business score and your life in the last year going to Y Combinator. I really do hope you do well. It sounds like it's going to be a fantastic journey. And for anyone who's got an e-commerce business out there which isn't selling Al's hats, this is your man.
We're here for you. We're here for you. Check us out. Our website is scorethebusiness.com.
Have I been saying the business score all the way through and it's scorethebusiness.com?
Well, yeah, that's our domain, Score the Business.
Yeah, okay, so scorethebusiness.com. It'll be in the credits and I'll mention it at the beginning as well. Thank you very much, Rich.
Thank you, Alistair. See you now.